November 10th, 1975. The wind roared across Lake Superior like a freight train that never ends. Waves climbed 30 feet high and rolled black and cold as iron. Out there in the dark, a ship fought to stay afloat. The Edmund Fitzgerald, the pride of the American side. By nightfall, she was gone. 29 men vanished without a word, without a light, without a single distress call. Some say the lake took her whole. Others say it still holds her in the depths where even the light doesn't reach. 50 years have passed, and still the bell tolls. Tonight, we remember.
This episode is brought to you by CarterComics.com. It is your one-stop shop for all comic needs, whether they be graded or raw. Carter Comics has got it all. All you gotta do is go to CarterComics.com, use the discount code FREAKNET, FREAKNET. You'll save 10% plus free shipping on your entire order. Again, CarterComics.com, one-stop shop for all comic needs. What's up, everybody? I am Travesty.
And I'm Cartoon Joe.
And welcome back to another episode of This Freakin' Show. It is the weekly podcast with a little bit of something and a whole lot of nothing. Guys, hope you've been enjoying the 4-part series that I did this past week with my friends Will and Justin, where we came together and talked for 4 hours about literally nothing.
Nice.
Yeah. The whole idea of going into it was like, oh, we're not going to talk about wrestling. And then majority of it was about wrestling, because once you find a common ground, you kind of just roll with it. But didn't realize it was 4 hours when we talked, but it did. And then it turned into 4 episodes. So part 1 and 2 were already released. And then 3 and 4 we released over the next week and a half. So last Tuesday, November 10th, the 50th anniversary of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Last year, I think it was last year or the year before, Joe, you and I actually did a podcast on the Edmund Fitzgerald. We just talked really briefly about it and took some of the knowledge that was really pulled up in real time online. I think we actually even listened to Gordon Lightfoot's song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Earlier this year, I know we made a plan, or not even a plan, like a hope or a goal to actually make it to Whitefish Bay this year for the 50th anniversary. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. So I figured instead of us missing out on an opportunity to pay tribute to Edmund Fitzgerald, I figured we would do another podcast on it, but to even deep dive deeper into it than we did the last time. And because I'm in the petroleum industry and I spent the majority of the last 13 years in it, this is a very near and dear thing to me. I every year, every year on November 10th that I work, I play the record jam show at work, and I talk about it. And it's surprising that some people in this industry didn't even know what it was. So.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm glad we're able to talk about it, and I'm glad we're doing this show. I have a bunch of notes here. We're gonna cover the idea, concept behind the Edmund Fitzgerald, the process it took from construction to it being dropped into the waterway for the first time. We're gonna talk mostly about the final voyage, because the record of Fitzgerald, that's the important part of it. But we're going to talk about some of the things that led up to the cause of the wreckage. Even though it's still speculative, people have a very good idea of what happened. And I actually have the final communication between the Fitzgerald and the Anderson, which was the boat that went along their final voyage with them, as well as some of the information from the search and rescue, and of course some of the effects of the wreckage, whether it be based on the safety of ships or just culture and the pop culture in general and stuff like that. I don't want to wait any longer. Like I said, I got a lot of information. I want to get through it here, and I hope you all enjoy as we run through it. And who knows, maybe you learned something. Joe, you're a very educated man, so I'm hoping this is going to be all new information for you to find interesting and take along with you in your journeys of life. Or maybe you'll find it boring and be glad this episode's over. I don't know. I don't
It wasn't
know.
much about the Edmund Fitzgerald, just that it happened. So,
Well, um, let me dive into the information I have here. I'm just going to keep reading until you want to interject a comment or anything. So please interrupt at any point in the conversation because I am literally just going to read through what I have here. And yeah, so now, if you grew up anywhere near the Great Lakes, you may have heard the name the Edmund Fitzgerald. Maybe it was a song your old man played on vinyl. That deep Gordon Lightfoot voice painted a picture of the big lake they called Gitchagumi. Maybe you saw her photo in a classroom, black hull, white trim, slicing through calm water before anyone knew her name would become a eulogy. It's been 50 years since that storm, half a century since 29 men went to the work one November morning and never came home. And yet, she's still with us in the museums and music and bones of everyone who's ever looked out over Superior and felt small. Um, Tonight, we're not chasing ghosts, we're chasing the truth. We'll look at how she was built, who sailed her, what went wrong, and why her story still holds up in its gripe 5 decades later. Uh, Birth of a Giant.
it's weird to think of things as 5 decades, but it is.
I mean, we're looking at
Well, I
19.
know it's not the point of what you said, but it's like that's weirdly the thing that struck out the most.
Well, the weird part too is if you think about 5 decades ago, is only 1975.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you're talking 15 years before we were born.
Yep.
Yeah. So, hey, people our age know that. So, back in the 1950s, Americans was obsessed with going bigger, bigger cars, bigger buildings, bigger everything. And the Great Lakes shipping industry was no exception. In 1957, the Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, yeah, an insurance company, not a shipping firm, decided that they wanted to be on the iron ore trade. But if they were going to do it, they weren't going to do it halfway. They went to the Great Lakes Engineering Works over in River Rouge, Michigan, and said, "Build us something nobody's ever seen before, something that could rule the lakes." And that's how the idea for the Edmund Fitzgerald was born. A ship so large it would literally push the limits of the locks and channels she had to pass through. 729 feet long, 75 feet wide, over 13,000 tons of American steel. She could carry 26,000 tons of cannonite pellets. I think I pronounced that right. No, I'm sorry, it's not. It's taconites. Taconite. Sorry. Taconite pellets. Those little iron marbles that feed the mills down in Detroit, Toledo, and Cleveland. When she was done, she wasn't just the biggest ship on the lake. She was the most advanced. Automatic steering, twin radar system, a 7,500 horsepower engine driving a single 19-foot propeller that could churn Superior into a froth. Side note, Joe, twin
Mhm.
radar system. Remember that.
Okay.
Yeah. She was the first of her kind to include a full galley with stainless steel fixtures, a crew mess with proper tables and booths, even a guest lounge for company executives who sometimes rode along to inspect the $1 million investment. They built her not just to move iron, but to do it in style. Her owner, Edmund Fitzgerald himself, chairman of Northwestern Mutual, was so proud that he personally supervised parts of her design. He even hosted a contest among employees to name her, the winning entry, his own name, of course.
Of course, yeah. He probably put it in like the Goblet of Fire.
Right. Got to, right? Right? Because I'm guaranteeing, like, knowing a guy who owns, a Northwestern mutual firm, 100% was probably a cash prize, and this way you didn't have to pay it out. It was probably an
Yeah.
anonymous submission.
Right.
When launch day came, June 7th, 1958. So we're talking a 5 year build. I'm sorry, 3 year build. No, a year. 1957, 1958. Never mind. Thousands of employees gathered along the Detroit River at the River Rouge shipyard to watch her take the plunge. She was too big to launch the old fashioned way, so they used an angle slipway and released her sideways. Basically, there was just an angular ramp that the boat sat on, and there were these wooden wedges that are pretty much preventing her from moving, and they just had to hit her with a sledgehammer to break it free. It it was interesting if you ever find a video on it. Um, at that point, things got a little bit weird, probably a little bit ominous, if you want to look at it that way. They tried to christen her in a traditional way, which Joe, I mean, I'm sure you know how they christen boats.
I assume they smash a bottle of champagne over it.
A bottle of champagne swung against a hull by Fitzgerald's wife herself,
Mm,
but the bottle wouldn't break. Not once, not twice. It took three swings before the glass fully shattered. And
crazy.
in maritime tradition, that's bad luck.
Right. Yeah, I would think so.
Then came the launch itself. As the massive ship slid into the water, she hit the dock with such force that a wave surged over the spectators. People screamed and scrambled back as the ground trembled. All that chaos, a man in the crowd, Jennings C. Frazier, at 58 years old, died from a heart attack right
Wild.
there on the dock.
Took a
For a
life
lot of
before it even left.
no, for a lot of folks, that moment felt like an omen. The unbreakable bottle, the violent splash, the sudden death. Old sailors muttered that the lake had already claimed its due. But for the next 17 years, the Fitzgerald didn't act cursed, she acted unstoppable. She broke cargo records year after year, carrying more iron ore than any other ship on the Great Lakes. She was so consistent, the other captains set their schedules by hers. If the Fitz was loading, they knew the weather was good and the docks were clear. She ran her routes between Duluth, Minnesota, Silver Bay, and the steel towns of the lower lakes. She carried her loads tight to schedule, often finishing the 1,000-mile run in record time. She earned nicknames like the Pride of the American Side, which we discussed a little bit earlier. Obviously, we're talking about the Great Lakes were shared between Canada and America. A lot of boats split between the two countries. This one being built, clearly, one of the largest the largest at that time, and breaking records after records and everything. So, also known as the Big Fitz for obvious reasons. Crews from smaller boats used to radio over to say, "There goes the Fitzgerald again," watching her glide just by like a floating city.
Hmm.
Inside, she had a rhythm all her own. The vibration of engines, the steady pulse of the propeller, the hum of steel meeting steel. To the men aboard, the sound meant paychecks and pride, steady work and steady hands. There was nothing glamorous about it, but there was beauty in it. A sense a sense that they were a part of something bigger, the machines that never stopped feeding the heart of American industry. And as she left the harbor each time, her long black hull gleaming, her white superstructure shining bright against the gray sky, the people who saw her said she didn't just move through the water, she commanded it. But every legend has its turning point. And for the Fitzgerald, that turning point came November of 1975, when the big ship that had broken every record would finally break apart under the one thing she couldn't outpace, the fury of the Superior.
Hmm.
Now, before we dive into that, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the crew and the captain of the Fitzgerald. 29 men. We're going to talk a little bit about uh, the captain for sure, but also kind of the living situation, the amount of money they made, and comparing that from 1975 to today, uh, with inflation included. So I saw this and I vomited a little. But let's talk about the men who called Edmund Fitzgerald home, because that's what it was, a home. 9 months out of every year, these guys lived, worked, and slept on this ship. And when I say slept, I mean caught a few hours when they could between the shifts that never stopped. The Fitzgerald didn't operate like your average job. There were no weekends, no clocking out, no Friday night beer with the guys. Once you were on board, that was your whole world until the shipping season ended, usually sometime in January when the ice took over and the harbors froze shut. Even still today, we don't have a lot. We have bountiful amount of work in Minnesota during the summer, but once December comes around, it dies down. It's crazy that obviously I know the lake's freezing over is a huge issue, but the fact that it halts ship moving even to this day in 2025 is incredible to think about.
Yep.
The Fitzgerald ran a 6 on, 6 off schedule, 6 hours on duty, 6 hours off every single day around the clock.
Crazy.
There were two crews per department that rotated deck, engine, and steward departments. The deckhands handled lines, cargo hatches, and watch duty. The engineers ran the guts of the ship, the engines, the boilers, and the generators. And the stewards, they made sure everyone else stayed alive and fed. Now, when you work on a ship like this, your pay depends on your role. In 1975, a captain like McSorley might make $35,000 a year, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize in today, that's about $200,000.
That's
Mate,
good
I'm
money.
sorry.
That's pretty good money.
Yeah, and that's pretty close to what ship captains are making this year. Maybe a little bit more than that, but yeah, they're not that far off, especially when you look at, what they're hauling. And then, obviously we're talking about Lake Superior, all these lakes, and hazard pay is included and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Mates and engineers earn somewhere between 12 and 18,000 a year, which equates to about 70 to $100,000 today. Deckmates and oilers, the guys doing the hard physical labor, earned anywhere from $8 to $12,000 a year, roughly 48 to $72,000 today. And that wasn't bad money for the Midwest in the 1970s, especially when you think what life was like back then. Now, to kind of give you guys a little perspective of what we're looking at here, a new house back in the day cost about $40,000. Today, you're looking at 240 for the same
Or
kind of house.
40,000 in today's money.
To buy a new house is 40,000 then, 240,000 today's money.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
That's
So
it.
it's
I think I said
40,000
that
in
wrong.
70s money. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly.
Yeah, I think I did word that wrong. I think that was on me. But yeah, so in 1970, a $40,000 house equates to about $240,000 house today.
Gotcha.
So when you look at the price you paid for a house you live in now, if you spent half of that, you're looking at a $20,000 house in 1970. But you're making $8 to $12,000 as a deckhand. You're looking at a mortgage of about 40 grand. A brand new car back then is about $4,800. We're talking about a car that's $29,000 today. You get the same car for $4,800 back in the 1970s. The biggest one I saw was college. In 1970, college tuition 4 years cost about 2,300 bucks
Yep. Yep. You
total.
could actually pay for it on a summer job, but that's a story for a different time.
There was I can't remember which crewman it was on the boat. And I wish I would have got that note. His father worked for like a council of river boats or these seafaring boats. There was a council for him, and he got his son a job on the Edmund Fitzgerald and said, just work for it for a year, see if you like it. If not, you at least pay for your college.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he was on the boat when it went down. And
Damn.
worse than I guess obviously he's not too much worse than that, but to add insult to injury, the council that he worked on was the one who worked to pay off the settlements for the people who were lost on the Fitzgerald. So he had to work on his son's own death
Oh,
settlement.
that sounds like a conflict of interest.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's mean.
it's. I mean, obviously they all
That's
they all they all got equal payouts, but yeah, it's one of the things because not only is he doing the death settlement, but he was the one that recommended him to get the job on the Fitzgerald.
hmm
So, um,
Well, it ran for 17 years. When
yeah.
things run for that long, there's no reason to assume that they're going to break.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna dive into what it was going on over those 17 years that may have led up to it.
Right. Well, I have no doubt.
Absolutely.
If I may put in my guess
100%.
now,
Yeah.
um, I have no doubt that the companies that are making money hand over fist, running this ship 6 hours a day,
Hmm.
uh, however many days a year, um, I have no doubt that they are cutting every corner possible in terms of maintenance, in terms of upkeep, and all of that. I'm sure that they're trying to see exactly how much they can load it down with so that they can ship more and more goods, even though the ship is maybe not rated for that amount. One thing I do know about the Edmund Fitzgerald that I'm sure you'll cover in a little bit is that when it went down, it was so overloaded that it was only about 11 feet above the water,
Hmm.
which like you can get a wave on Lake Superior taller than that. And that's one of the reasons it was so easy to capsize on the night that it went down. And so like it when your only interest is in profit, you are going to cut corners. You're going to not care about the employees. You're not going to care about necessarily beyond how much you can send. You're not going to care if it goes down because the insurance payment is going to more than cover whatever you were shipping. It's going to more than cover the cost of paying out the lives of the people who died. um it's just the way that business works, and especially in the 1970s and 80s, like that's just America moved that way. We stopped caring about the employee and started caring about the shareholder, and when you do that, this is the inevitable result.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Not far off. There were many different hands that were a factor in this. But yes, when it comes to the owners of the ship, and that 100% right, a lot of those records they were breaking were pushing limits.
Yeah.
So 100% right on that. Most of these guys had wives, children, parents back in places like Duluth, Ashtabula, Silver Bay, and Toledo. They leave in early spring, come home around Christmas. If weather, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I just weirdly, it made me want to chime in again. There are only two kinds of guys, in my opinion, who do jobs like this.
Hmm.
It's either young guys who want to make a fortune before their bodies crap out on them, or middle-aged to older guys who have a family that they have to care for and can't do anything else.
Yeah, it's the ones who need it and the ones who want it.
Yeah, I've seen
That's
I've
about it.
seen what is it, like deep sea fishers or whatever on,
Hmm.
on the History Channel or
Oh
Discovery
yeah.
Channel. And my great grandfather, my mom's grandfather was a fisherman from Newfoundland, and he was gone 6 months out of the year. My
Yep.
grandmother and her siblings would stay at the orphanage 6 months a year because her mom died in childbirth, whatever. But I don't want to just like whatever, move past that, but that's what happened. And as a result, like he was gone half the year out fishing, doing, I don't know if he was a lobsterman or a cod fisherman,
Hmm.
but he was gone 6 months a year. And there's all sorts of stories that have been passed down to us about him. And he was a lovely guy from what I understand, but he was also the guy whose job it was to like bring liquor aboard the ship because it was illegal. And so he
Yep.
would tie bottles of whiskey down his legs and wear loose pants. um but anyway, that it's irrelevant to the story. It's just a fun fact about him.
Yeah, talking
Um,
about boats, bro.
yeah, but it's the way these jobs are. They are hard jobs, and you only do them if you're young and want to make good money really quickly,
Yep.
or if you're middle aged to old, and you need to make good money for your wife and your kids back home.
Mm.
You know,
Yep.
it makes sense to me.
Well,
And
and the fact is, like, when you look at like what this occupation is, like, these were the occupations that, I mean, you're talking even before the Edmund Fitzgerald came around in 1958. Like this, I mean, you're talking about 1800s and beyond. So you're talking about through the Great Depression,
yeah,
when you needed to work, you had to work. These jobs still existed,
right.
and I mean, brutal times, but gotta get the paycheck when you can, you
Yep.
know. Um,
Yeah. The average wage was about $6,186 a year in 1970. And what did you say was the average wage on the Edmund Fitzgerald?
for deckhand and Oilers, so the lower ranking,
Yeah,
8
yeah,
to
yeah.
12. 8 to
Eight to
12.
12,000. So
Yeah.
2,000 more than the average, up
Yeah.
to twice as much as the average.
And the thing is too, like, and the only way I don't know how like it balances out or anything. Like if you look at the average 6,000 a year you mentioned, does that say like what kind of job that would be, or is that just
It didn't
from
say.
okay, so
Yeah, average
these
across the whole
yeah,
economy.
so these guys, the only blessing they really had was the fact that they were off work for 3 months.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that balances
Teachers.
out to weekends off, evenings off, and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean they're making 8 to 12 grand and they're working 75% of the year.
Right.
So it's like does it balance out? Maybe, but
Yeah.
regardless, you pick any profession, you can always say they're definitely underpaid.
Right.
Um, because even looking at today's standards, I mean, how would you go out on a boat, work, live for 9 months out of the year for 48 grand?
No.
Right? It's
No. The only thing that intrigued me was the idea of like, oh, I can make 200 grand as a captain. That sounds like
yeah.
it could be fun. But
Now when I worked at when I worked as an inspector, we would always deal with like the barge boats and everything, and the tugboats,
mhm.
and they like their jobs were they were I think they said they were 28 days on, 14 days off, which that's not bad. That's not horrible.
28 on, 14 off.
28 on, 14 off. That's
Oh,
not
okay. Yeah.
horrible.
So you work a month and then you get 2 weeks off.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I mean, that granted, that's not too horrible. So, I mean, that's something that's
Right.
probably more doable than 9 months and.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It could be worse. I mean, it's all a balance, right? Like you
yes.
can't go anywhere or do anything else during that month that you're on the water, you know. So that kind of makes sense to me. And I think about like a lot of hospital jobs work
Mhm.
similar things, but they get to go home at the end of the day,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. Anyway.
They would leave in early spring, come home around Christmas if weather and luck would allow it. Some would miss the birth of their children, some would miss birthdays every year, and for what? To make sure the iron ore kept moving, that the steel mills stayed hot, and the cars kept rolling off the lines. They'd work for the families, even if they didn't always get to see them. So let's talk about the captain here real quick. So the captain's name was Ernest M. McSorley. If you ever look at a picture of him, he kind of reminds me. I can't remember the guy's name, but he played Lieutenant Dan. So that guy, I can't remember his name though.
Wait,
So
he was played
he's
by the guy who played
he played Lieutenant Dan in Forrest Gump. So I can't remember that guy's name.
Ernest McSorley did.
No, no, the actor who played Lieutenant Dan in
Oh,
Forrest Gump looks like
looks like.
Captain. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Sorry,
because
that's where I was. I
no, you're
was
fine. No,
thinking.
you're yeah. Ernest McSorley. After he
I was like, how
died,
did he survive to play for it? Playing
yeah,
Forrest Gump?
yeah, he died, and then 20 years later, he came from now. I can't remember the guy's name. But
Gary something, right? Sinise.
something like that. Yeah. Um, when I saw a picture of Ernest McSorley, I was like, if they ever made an Edmund Fitzgerald movie, first off, I'd watch it. But that guy would probably be perfect to cast for Ernest
Now,
McSorley. What's up?
Gary Sinise now
Yeah.
looks like Ernest McSorley.
Yeah, which you would need an older gentleman to play McSorley because McSorley I think was like 63, 68, somewhere in between there. Born in 1912, so in 1975 that put him at 63. Born in 1912, raised in the port towns of Ontario, he started as a deckhand when he was just a teenager. By the time he was 30, he earned his master's papers and a reputation for being calm under pressure, which a lot of people think that may have been the issue to start out with when there was no distress signals ever being
He was
called.
just like, oh, it's fine.
Well, yeah,
We're
yeah,
going
but
down, but I'll handle it.
keep that statement in mind. The commanded he commanded several ships before taking over the Fitzgerald in 1972. So he only captained the ship for 3 years. 3 years later, in the fall of 75, he already told his wife that was it, his last season before retirement. He was known for running a tight ship, but treating his men fairly. He wasn't one for shouting or showboating. He led by example. If there was work to be done, McSorley was usually nearby with a wrench in his hand or a coffee in his grip, making sure it got done right. He trusted his crew and they trusted him. I think as a leader, you need that.
That's what you got to do. That's the difference between a leader and a boss.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Life aboard the Fitzgerald. Life aboard the Fitzgerald wasn't easy, but it was steady. The ship had 29 crewmen, each with their own bunk and shared quarters. Rooms were small, 2 or 4 men to a cabin, with metal bunks, lockers, and just enough space to swing your legs over the side in the morning. If you were lucky enough to have a single room, that usually meant you were an officer or senior engineer. The bathrooms, or heads as sailors called them, were shared by the deck department, 2 sinks, a couple of showers, and a row of stalls. Hot water came from the boilers, so if the engines were down, the showers were cold. Um, and they didn't break sometimes. So yeah, and they did break sometimes. So the showers wasn't something you could count on every day. The galley was really the heart of the ship. The cook usually called the stewards, had one of the most important. The cooks, usually called stewards, had one of the most important jobs aboard. Breakfast started early: pancakes, eggs, oatmeal, bacon, whatever you could whip up before the first watch came off duty. Lunch might have been soup or sandwiches. Dinners, roast, stews, mashed potato, pie. Sometimes you get like some like fruit cups, fruit cocktails, stuff like that. Meals were simple but filling, and for a lot of the guys, it was the only real comfort they got out there. Between shifts, some crews would read, write home letters, or play cards in the mess. There was no TV. Sometimes they bring a small radio, but reception out on Superior was hit or miss. The calm days, you'd see guys leaning over the rail with a cigarette, watching the shoreline fade behind them, lost in their own thoughts. When the weather turned bad, those same guys would be below deck trying to keep their balance while the whole world tilted around them. They lived by routine: eat, work, rest, repeat. And with the Fitz docked at port, there wasn't much to do for shore leave. Loading or unloading could take 12 to 20 hours, and then it's right back out again. Sometimes they hit 3 ports in a week, hauling thousands of tons of ore through storms, fog, and freezing rain. Still, there was pride in it. There was part of something big, not just a ship, but a tradition that stretched back generations. The Great Lake Freighter men were the backbone of the Midwest. They kept the mills running, the factories alive, and the cars rolling off the assembly line that built the American dream. And when you live that kind of life, one defined by hard work, discipline, and danger, the ship comes more than a workplace. It becomes a family. Those 28 other men aren't just co-workers, they're brothers. You eat together, sleep within arm's reach, share the same storms, and face the same fears. So when a ship goes down out there, it's not just a tragedy, it's a hole torn in the heart of everyone who's ever worked that lakes.
Mm.
Uh, all right, let's dive into the pre-voyage conditions and rumored weak points. This is some of the stuff that came up that could attributed to what happened to the Fitzgerald. Now, here's the thing: ships like the Edmund Fitzgerald just don't go down out of nowhere. They're massive. They're engineered to take a punishment, and they've got built-in redundancies for almost everything. So when a ship like that disappears in minutes, sometimes more is going on than just bad weather. By the fall of 1975, the Fitzgerald was 17 years old. That's not old for a Great Lakes ship, but it's long enough for wear to show on the right or wrong places. She'd hauled millions of tons of iron ore throughout some of the roughest waters on the continent, from the port of Superior and Duluth down through Whitefish Bay, past the Sioux Locks, and all the way to the steel mills of the lower lakes. Every trip meant stress. Steel bends, welds flex, rivets stretch, hatches strain. Over the years, inspectors had noted a few issues. Nothing major, but something worth watching. Some bent hatches, coamings, that's the raised metal lip around the cargo hatches, minor cracks in deck plating, and superstructure welds that were patched through winter layups. Some corrosion around vent covers and rails. That's the kind of stuff any ship that's worked hard is going to have, like a few scars on a prize fighter. But add up enough scars and you start to wonder how many hits it's got left. Now, here's where things get interesting and maybe a little prophetic. That's right. I know that word.
Mhm.
A few weeks before the final voyage, while the Fitzgerald was being loaded in port, a dock crane accidentally struck one of her radar masts.
One of
Remember,
her
I was
two.
telling that, yep, so they had that dual radar, right?
Hmm.
The impact damaged one of her two radar units, her upper radar, which was crucial for long range navigation in storms or fog. So that's the one that got damaged.
Gotcha. So wait, so was it like short? One of the radar things was short range radar, and the other was long range
Yeah,
radar, or was it? Okay, gotcha.
yeah.
In my head, for whatever reason, when you said there was twin radar, I assumed it was for one side of the ship and the other side of the ship. Because when I think twin, I think split down the middle.
Possible.
But
I mean,
that way, that makes way more sense because like you can't very very broadly speaking, you can't separate radar. I mean, you can point it in a direction, but like it's sound. It travels outward in a wave,
yeah,
a central point. So it makes more sense to do short range. That short range and long range. Thank you.
yeah. You're
It
welcome.
also makes more sense as to how it would cause the ship to go down. Because I was sitting here thinking like, what? Maybe there was like a random Great Lakes iceberg on one side, and they just didn't see it because the radar was broken on that side. I was wrong. Don't make the assumptions I made,
Yeah.
class.
Emails can be sent to thisfreakinshow@yahoo.com
Yeah,
if you really want to
yeah. I'm
virtually
looking forward to
slap
the
his
tweet you
ham.
get about the Goblet of Fire comment. 'Cause, the whole point of that story is that Harry did not put his name in the Goblet of Fire, and the people who rage quit back when I said it earlier stopped listening. So
Yeah, yeah. At that point, they were just
they
out.
they were they're mid email right now.
Yeah, yeah. They're popping on Sorcerer's Stone and just continuing on.
Yep.
Um, so the radar, to the best of their abilities, was repaired, but it didn't really do what it needed to do. Crewmen stated that it would have a habit of cutting out, and even though the backup radar was working, it wasn't as powerful. So we are talking about short range, long range radio. And if you know the Lake Superior in November, you know radar is everything. Visibility could drop to zero in seconds. Lose your radar in the fog, and you're flying blind on a 729-foot steel missile. And the captain knew it. McSorley knew this was going to be an issue. He mentioned to the other captains that he was planning a full radar overhaul that winter during the layup of the Fitzgerald. Fortunately, we all know that winter time never came.
Yep.
Besides the radar, there were a few other things noted that fall. Some of the hatch clamps, those big dogs that hold the covers tight, had shown wear. Um, Not enough to fail an inspection, but enough that they were on the maintenance list.
Mhm.
Cargo hold gaskets were due for replacement soon, and some minor deck plating repairs were penciled in for January. Now, none of that meant the Fitzgerald was unsafe. She passed every Coast Guard inspection that year. But when you combine a little fatigue here, a small leak there, a finicky radar, and a season's worth of rough weather, well, those are the little things that can start lining up. And when they do, you got the start of a perfect storm, even before the storm turns ugly. As Captain McSorley prepared to leave port that November weekend, he probably had no reason to think that it'd be anything more than another hard trip across Superior. He's done it 100 times before. The Fitz had done it in the worst weather and come through just fine. But the Great Lakes have a way of reminding even the best captains that they're in charge, not you. And by the time the Fitzgerald left port on November 9th, 1975, some folks say she was already limping a little, just enough that the lakes noticed. Okay, Joe, we're gonna dive into the final voyage here.
All right.
Um,
Crazy, by the way. And it's I'm immediately thinking about all the deferred maintenance I'm always doing
mhm.
on like my church building, on my car, some places around my house. And it's like at least no one else's lives depend on my deferred maintenance uh you know, being the
Yeah,
right choice. It's just my pocketbook and how much I want to spend when things catastrophically fail.
yeah. What? And it's anything from small to big stuff. If you look at it like, hey, I could pull those weeds, but I'm just not feeling like it. Well, then now you have a flower bed full of weeds.
Right. I should probably mow the lawn today if I get a chance before it rains. Because theoretically the village could, punish me. I could get like a $300 fine if they have to do it.
Well, you should tell them to do it.
Yeah, right. It might be worth it. No, I'm kidding.
Like,
Not worth it.
like, instead of giving me a $300 fine, how about I just give you an $80 to just go do it myself? Or go
Right.
do it yourselves, right? See,
Yeah.
win-win.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, or I think about like I just changed the timing belt on my
Mhm.
Subaru.
Yeah.
And it turns out, so I didn't this is just a little lesson for the people and listeners who may not know this. I didn't know that a timing belt was a thing that needed to be changed like frequently or whatever. Not
Yeah.
super frequently, every 100,000 miles, give or take, but check your maintenance log, check your manual. I was about 3,000 miles overdue and was like really lucky that it didn't break. Because if your timing chain breaks, your engine can basically kill itself because it controls the timing of the pistons and stuff, and it could all seize up and just blow up your engine. So I'm just saying, on the topic of deferred maintenance, if you have a car, you have a timing belt. If you're around, if you're within 30,000 miles of 100,000 on either side, check your manual and see if you need to change that. Because you don't want to be driving with your kids in the car and have your engine catastrophically fail. That's what I'm telling to you. So you
Yeah.
don't want to Edmund Fitzgerald your car.
That's true. That's true.
That's the main point here.
You don't want to split in half and sink.
Right. Damn straight.
All because of the timing belt.
Yep. Yep.
Just be bad timing.
Yep. And sorry for the digression. It's just
Yeah, you're good.
that's how I relate to this right now.
Hey man, it's your podcast too.
Yeah, fair enough.
The Final Voyage. It's Sunday, December 9th, 1975, and the Edmund Fitzgerald is being loaded at Burlington Northern Dock 1 in Superior, Wisconsin. The cargo going on it, 26,116 tons of taconite pellets, iron ore bound for the Zug Island Steel Mill near Detroit. The loadmaster checks her depth and signs off. The Fitzgerald rides low, but even with the weight, she's balanced, solid, steady, the way she always looks leaving port. At about 2:15 p.m., Captain Ernest McSorley gives the order to cast off. Lines were loosened, engine spool up. The Fitzgerald eases away from the dock, her twin propellers churning the brown harbor water. Behind her, a few hours later, another freighter, the Arthur M. Anderson, commanded by Captain Bernard Cooper, follows the same route. Two giants of the lake, both loaded down with ore, heading east through Superior towards Whitefish Bay. At first, everything looked routine. The weather's blustery, typical November stuff, with forecasts calling for a gale, maybe 40 miles an hour winds, and a little snow. Nothing these ships haven't handled 100 times before. But as any Great Lakes sailor will tell you, November forecasts are polite lies. By the time both ships clear the Apostle Islands that evening, the wind has begun to rise. Barometers start dropping fast. At 1 a.m., the National Weather Service issues an upgraded weather. Storm force winds expecting gusts to 60 knots. That's hurricane level winds for an inland sea. Captain McSorley radios the Anderson, suggesting they travel together. Keep within visual and radar range just in case. It's a smart move. Two ships can watch each other's back when Superior gets mean. Through the early morning hours of November 10th, the storm builds, waves climb past 20 feet, snow and sleet hammer the deckhouse, visibility drops to zero, and the radar screen turns into gray static. The Fitzgerald pushes, hugging the Canadian shoreline. That's the northern route. Safer in theory because it keeps you closer to shallow water and less fetch for the wind to build up the big rollers. But the storms don't care about routine. It has a mind of its own. By mid-morning, the winds are over 50 knots. The seas are stacking, not just tall but confused, coming from multiple directions. The Fitzgerald starts to take spray over her bow, so heavy it freezes on impact, icing up her railing and deck gear. At about 3:30 p.m., the first crack of the armor shows. McSorley calls Anderson. His voice is calm but measured. Now, this is actual radio conversation that he has. McForley says, Anderson, this is the Fitzgerald. I have a fence rail down, 2 vents lost or damaged, and a list. I'm checking down. Will you stay by me till I get to Whitefish? Cooper from the Anderson responds, Charlie on that, Fitzgerald. Do you have your pumps going? McSorley responds, yes, both of them. That's not small talk, that's trouble. A list means she's leaning to one side, and losing vents mean water's been coming over the deck hard enough to tear steel fittings loose. A few hours later, around 5 p.m., another ship, the Swedish vessel Avafors, tries to radio the Fitzgerald, warning her about the loss of the navigational buoy near Whitefish Point. The Fitzgerald replies, McSorley says, I have a bad list, lost both radars, and I am taking heavy seas over the deck. One of the worst seas I've ever been in. Both radars gone. That meant the Fitzgerald was now sailing blind, navigating only by compass and radio bearing relayed from the Anderson behind her. Captain Cooper on the Anderson starts giving McSorley updates over the radio. He's reading the Fitzgerald's position from his radar screen and telling her where to steer. Think about that. A 729-foot ship in hurricane winds, trusting another captain's radar miles behind her to stay off the shoals. Around 6 p.m., the Coast Guard weather station in Marquis reports that the storm center has shifted. The wind's now howling directly from the northwest. That means both ships are about to be hit broadside by the full force of the gales. The waves climbed to 30 feet. Some crew later say they saw seas as high as the pilot's house, which is near 40 feet high. As a side note to this, there's a documentary on YouTube. It's called The Gales of November. I think it came out this year for the 50th anniversary. And somebody, I can't remember the person's name um, on that documentary, was talking about the Anderson wasn't seeing or receiving the same size waves that the Fitzgerald was
Hmm.
presumably seeing, and they think that might be because the Fitzgerald might have already been sinking at that point. So
What happened out there? Bird hit your window?
something in my window.
Yeah,
It's
weird.
kind of ominous. At 7:10 p.m., the Anderson calls one last time. Cooper from the Anderson says, by the way, Fitzgerald, how are you making out with your problems? The last transmission from McSorley of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which we talked about how calm he was. Last transmission, McSorley stated, we are holding our own.
Hmm.
The last anyone heard from the Edmund Fitzgerald. No distress call, no
Literally
SOS,
words.
yeah, no mayday, just silence. I mean, they obviously talked about how fast the boat went down too. So they thought that this was right before it happened. A few minutes later, the Andersons' radar loses her. A moment she's there, a bright, solid blip. The next, she's gone. Captain Cooper tries to raise her again and again on every frequency. Nothing. He radios the Coast Guard at Sault Ste. Marie to report what happened. Now Cooper's radioing to the Coast Guard. We can't raise the Fitzgerald on the radio. She's disappeared from the scope. The Coast Guard replies, cautious but urgent. Do you think there's a possibility you could come about and go back there and do any searching?
Goggins.
Sorry. My bad.
What the hell was that?
I pulled up a video that auto played.
Oh,
This location.
Did it again. Sorry.
do you think there's a possibility you could come about and go back there and do any searching? So at this point, the Coast Guard is asking the Anderson to go back and look for the Fitzgerald. So Cooper says, "Oh God, I don't know. The seas out here are tremendously large. If you want me to, I can, but I'm not going to make any time. I'll be lucky to make 2 to 3 miles an hour going back that way." Cooper goes ahead and he does it anyways. He turns the Anderson around in the middle of that hellish storm and heads back into the black, searching for any sign of his friends. Nothing. No light, no debris. Just the sound of the wind and the waves. By the time the storm... What's that?
Crazy. Just straight down.
By the time the storm passes the next day, Lake Superior has gone quiet again, but the Fitzgerald and her 29 men are gone, somewhere beneath 530 feet of cold, dark water. A 729-foot boat sunk in 530 feet of water.
Wow.
Search and theories of the Edmund Fitzgerald. When the ship disappeared in the storm, the first instinct is to believe it to be a communication failure. Maybe the radio's out. Maybe she's lost power. Maybe she's still out there, limping through the waves. But everyone thought when the Fitzgerald vanished from... That's what everyone thought when the Fitzgerald vanished from radar at 7:10 p.m. But as the minutes turned into hours, the hope started to fade. The Arthur M. Anderson kept calling, scanning the darkness of light. Captain Cooper kept his radar turned as tight as it would go, trying to pick up even a faint echo, and nothing. At 7:39 p.m., he radioed the U.S. Coast Guard station at Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. He reported that the Fitzgerald had disappeared and the conditions were the worst he's ever seen. The Coast Guard's watch officer acknowledged the report, but didn't fully grasp what he meant yet, because out there in November, radio silence was common. Static, lightning, and snow could knock out communications for hours. So they started hailing the Fitzgerald themselves over and over again with no success. By 9 p.m., they realized something was terribly wrong. The Coast Guard at Group So contacted every vessel in range, asking if anyone could attempt a search. The Anderson was still fighting 25 to 30-foot waves and winds gusting over 60 miles an hour. When they asked if she could turn back, Captain Cooper hesitated for only a moment. He turned the ship and went away. The hurricane-force winds and snow so thick he couldn't see the bow. He went behind out into the storm. By midnight, the first Coast Guard aircraft from Traverse City joined the search, flying low over the lake, using flares to cut through the snow squalls. They spotted no survivors, no signals, but just before dawn, they did find something. 2 lifeboats, both smashed to pieces, floating in an icy water. Nearby, there were rings, hatch covers, and oil slicks. The next morning, another search plane found debris scattered over a 15-mile area northwest of Whitefish Point. No bodies were ever recovered. For days, the Coast Guard and Canadian authorities combed the surface, hoping to find something that would explain what happened. It wasn't until November 4th that the U.S. Navy, using an aircraft equipped with magnetometers, detected a large metallic object on the lake bed, 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Point. That's where the Fitzgerald rests.
Wild.
17 miles away. Granted, I believe they're only traveling like 3 miles an hour at this point. So,
Yeah.
so you're talking like what, 5, 6 hours, 6 hours. So, the official cause of sinking has never been fully agreed on, but after 50 years of study, four major theories still dominate every conversation by the Fitzgerald. Number one, aliens. No, I'm just kidding.
Hell yeah.
I'm
Like
sorry.
Canadians or like
Yeah.
space?
Yeah, both. No, I'm just kidding. The hatch cover failure theory. The most widely accepted explanation is that water entered the cargo holds through the damaged or improperly sealed hatch covers. The Fitzgerald had 21 hatches, each weighing several tons, held shut by clamps and dogs meant to be watertight. If even one gasket or clamp failed, tons of water could pour in during each wave. That water could slosh inside the cargo hold, what sailors call the free surface effect, which can cause a ship to list, slow down, and eventually lose buoyancy. When investigators later found the hatches separated from their coamings, they couldn't tell whether that happened before or after the boat hit bottom. But the damage matched the kind of stress water pressure would cause if she had been taken on water for hours. Second theory is the structural failure theory. Some experts think the Fitzgerald literally broke in half on the surface. The Great Lakes are freshwater, but they are created waves as tall as violent as any ocean. When you get a long, narrow ship like the Fitz, 729 feet from bow to stern, the waves can lift her end while leaving the midsection supported. This causes hogging and sagging, and if it happens repeatedly, the steel can fatigue. Basically, the whole concept of you take a paper clip and keep bending it back and forth, eventually it snaps. Several divers later found the wreck split cleanly with the bow upright and the stern upside down about 170 feet away. The kind of break pattern would expect the hull had flexed too far under stress. Another theory is the shoaling or grounding theory. Captain McSorley had taken the northern route along the Canadian coast close to the 6-fathom shoal, a shallow ridge that arises unexpectedly from the lake bed. Some believe the Fitzgerald may have scraped bottom there, tearing open her hull just enough for water to start flooding in. McSorley commented to the Anderson about a fence rail down and vents lost or damaged fits the pattern of an impact of something hard. If she did strike the ridge, she might have been doomed hours before the storm even peaked. Final theory is the rogue wave theory. The last and most traumatic theory involves what sailors on the Anderson later reported three enormous waves they called the Three Sisters. These are rogue waves from form when multiple swells combine into one monster. They could be 50 feet high and hit in quick succession, giving the ship no time to recover. Captain Cooper said that the three waves hit his ship just after they lost radar contact with the Fitzgerald. He believes they may have reached the Fitzgerald moments earlier, possibly overwhelming the bow and flooding her so fast she sank in seconds. Each theory makes sense in its own ways, and that's what makes the mystery so haunting. No one will ever know for sure which one or which combination finally brought her down, but everyone who's ever worked the lakes know the truth behind all the speculation. It could have been any of them because when Superior gets angry, she doesn't need a reason. Uh, so the aftermath of the Fitzgerald. I promise, Joe, we're done. We're almost done. I'm sorry. Just
Oh, you're good.
bear with me. I hope so. I hope this is fascinating to you.
It is, yeah.
Like I know I'm no audiobook, but I assume my voice is somber enough to where it'll keep you awake, but also would lull you to sleep at sometimes.
Not at 8 in the morning.
When the storm finally broke on November 11th, 1975, the Superior Lakes looked calm again. Too calm, considering what just has been done. The water was still sky pale, flat, like nothing has ever even happened. But everyone who worked the lakes knew better. The Fitzgerald was missing. 29 men gone. The family waited for word that never came. Within days, the Coast Guard had confirmed that no survivors had been found. Only debris, two lifeboats smashed beyond recognition, a bit of hatch cover, life rings, and a field of oil drifting in the water. The search on the surface was over, but what lays beneath was only the beginning. In November 1975, just 4 days after the disappearance, the U.S. Navy joined the search with an aircraft emitted with a magnetometer. The device did finally detect the metal objects under the water. They found something. The massive reading, 17 miles northwest of White Point, right where the Anderson last had her radar on. The location was marked, but the technology of the times couldn't show much more. It wasn't until May of 1976 that the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Woodrush returned with side scan sonar and the Navy's unmanned cover vehicle Curve 3. The first sonar image showed two main sections in the lake bed, the bow upright and the stern upside down, and a trail of twisted wreckage between them. They found the Edmund Fitzgerald. The water there was about 530 feet deep, pitch black, near freezing, and deadly to human divers. The Curve 3 went back grainy black and white video. Sent back grainy white and black video. The ship looked torn up, her hull ripped wide, the pilot's house crushed, lifeboat shattered, and was clear she hadn't gone down slowly. It looked like she'd been ripped apart. So, maybe Kraken, we don't know. The expedition below. Over the next 2 decades, more expeditions returned to the spot. The Canadian Navy, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historic Society, underwater archaeologist Dr. Joseph McGinnis, and other private teams. Each one brought back clear footage, better maps, and more questions. They confirmed that the sonar had shown the Fitzgerald's rest in 2 large pieces. The bow lies upright, still proud, with her forward cabin and pillow house crushed but still recognizable. The stem is upside down and twisted, torn mess of steel and machinery lying about 170 feet away. Between them lies the debris field, scattered hatch covers, railing, personal effects, and the remains of the ship's midsection. Divers described it as eerily silent, like stepping into a cathedral built of steel. No fish, no movement, just a slow drift of silt in the flashlight beams. And then came the most controversial discovery of all. In the early 1990s, a Canadian documentary team visited the wreck with submersible cameras, one of the clearest missions to date. While filming near the bow section, the camera swept across a spot just off the starboard side, and what they captured shocked everyone watching the live feed. There, lying partially buried in silt, appeared to be the remains of a man. Still wearing a life jacket, face down, one arm extended towards the wreck. The body seemed to have been trapped under the twisted steel when the ship broke apart, preserved in the freezing depths for nearly 20 years. The footage was shown to authorities but never publicly released in full out of the respect for the family. It confirmed that everyone had feared but hadn't wanted to believe. Some of the crew had made it out of the ship, but least for a moment before being claimed by the cold. The discovery caused an uproar. Families demanded that no one dive to the wreck again, calling it a gravesite, not a tourist attraction. And they were right. Legal protection and heritage laws. After the controversy, Canada stepped in. In 1995, Ontario declared the wreckage of the Edmund Fitzgerald a protected site under the Ontario Heritage Act, recognizing it as a sacred memorial. Unauthorized diving or disturbing the wreckage became illegal. Any further exploration required permission from both the Canadian and U.S. government, and more importantly, from the families of the crew. That same year, divers from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society were granted permission for one final mission, to retrieve the ship's bell. They carefully detached it from the pilot house and raised it to the surface on July 4th, 1995. So 35 years ago, that bell came out of the water. At the dock of Whitefish Point, a new replica belt was lowered back down to the wreck, engraved with the names of the 29 men. It rings 29 times every November 10th at the memorial service, one for each life lost, and one more for and once more for all who've perished on the Great Lakes. The recovered bell now sits in the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum at Whitefish Point. Polished to a mirror shine, it stands as both a memorial and a warning. The plaque beside it simply reads, "The Bell of the Edmund Fitzgerald, in memory of her crew." Since then, the site has been treated for reverence, no salvage, no souvenir hunting, nor curiosity dives. Only occasional research missions allow the family consent, we're always respectful. Because down there, half a thousand feet below the surface, rest 29 men who never made it home. The deep water is where grave and the lake and lighthouse sing, never give up their dead.
Beautiful.
A little parched. Give me 1 second. I'm almost done, I promise you. I promise you. I told you, I did a lot of research here. Don't be mad
Yeah, I
at me.
dig it. I like it.
Don't be mad at me.
I approve.
Cultural significance and safety impacts. When word of the Edmund Fitzgerald's disappearance hit the news, the Great Lakes community froze. 29 men gone, no distress calls, no explanations. It was just a story on the radio. It wasn't just a story on the radio, it was personal. Every port, every dock, every family that worked the lakes knew someone who knew someone on the ship. Superior wasn't just cold that week, it was quiet. In 1976, a year later, the Canadian folk singer Gordon Lightfoot did something extraordinary. He took cold facts of tragedy, date, weather, tonnage, names, and somehow turned it into poetry. The legend lives on from the Chippewa down to the big lake they call Gitchagumi. That song, "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald," hit number 2 on the Billboard charts. And just like that, the steel freighter that had sunk in silence became a story every household knew. Lightfoot didn't sensationalize it, he humanized it. He gave the storm a voice and the men aboard a heartbeat. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn minutes to hours? That line, it haunts people for 50 years. Every year since, on November 10th, church, museums, and harbors across the Midwest hold services. At the Maritime Church in Detroit, where the bell first tolled for the lost crew, they still ring 30 times, one for each 29 men, and the 30th for everyone who's been lost on the Great Lakes. At Whitefish Point, people gather by the lighthouse. This is where we were hoping to go this year, staring out into the same horizon where the Fitzgerald vanished, as if they might still see her lights appear through the fog. The sinking of the Fitzgerald wasn't just another shipwreck, it marked the end of an era. 1975, Fitzgerald was the last major ship ever lost to the Great Lakes. And the fact alone says something about how deep her impact ran. After Fitzgerald, nothing about lake shipping was ever the same. It was as if the lake themselves ever issued a warning, and everyone who made them living on them listen. The U.S. Coast Guard and Canadian authorities launched one of the most exhaustive maritime investigations in Great Lakes history. It didn't focus on the storm, it focused on the system. Stronger hatch standards. Investigators suspected water may have entered through weakened hatch clamps. Some of the Coast Guard required all ships to upgrade hatch cover gaskets, redesign coamings, and add secondary seals to prevent leaks. Crews were trained to inspect and tighten every clamp before departure, no exceptions. Weather tracking and storm routing back then, shipmasters relied on radio, forecast, and personal judgment. Now, real-time satellite data, radar feeds, and coordinate weather routings programs are mandatory. When the barometers drop, the Coast Guard issue immediate gale and storm warnings, and ships are expected to alter course or seek safe harbor. The Fitzgerald didn't have any automatic distress beacons. If she had, she might have been known to exact second when she went down. After 1975, emergency position indicating radio beacons became mandatory on large freighters. If ships go under, the beacon triggers automatically, transmitting its last known location to rescue stations within seconds. When the Fitzgerald's lifeboats were found shattered, it was where they hadn't stood a chance. New regulation required steel or rigged hulled lifeboats and inflatable survival rafts designed to deploy automatically, even if the ship capsizes. The Fitzgerald's breakup raised concerns about hull fatigue on long wielded ships, and Coast Guard introduced ultrasonic testing and stricter hull inspection intervals. Ships passing a certain age must now undergo mid-season inspection and off-season dry dock evaluation. Because of the Fitzgerald sank in Canada waters, jurisdictions are complicated that was complicated that night. Afterwards, the two nations signed cross-border agreements for joint command communication and search operations. Today, if a distress call goes out anywhere on the Great Lakes, both sides respond instantly under shared authority. Through the years, documentaries and researchers kept the story alive. Some romanticize it, some investigate it, some, like the Canadian team in the early 1990s, expose details that forever changed how the wreck was viewed. Their cameras confirmed that no one wanted to admit the men were still there. That revelation led directly to the law that passed. Okay. Just make sure I got this right. The Fitzgerald was listed by name. Its site permanently closed. Okay. Okay. 50 years. The Edmund Fitzgerald still looms large in the American imagination. She's become a symbol of nature's power, of working class grit, of mystery. Museums across the Midwest tell her story. Artists paint her, songwriters honor her. Every kid who's ever stared at a stormy lake in November has thought for a second about the big ship that lost 29 souls.
Every kid?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, fair enough.
Listen, man. I'm trying to build an illusion here. We don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
People should know this stuff. I'm assuming children watch our show.
They should know.
Listen to our show. They should know now. Heck yes. And what's wild is since then, listen, we don't know what they know up in Minnesota or Michigan and Wisconsin.
That's true.
Edmund Fitzgerald could be talked about. Like, it took me near an hour and a half to read through this, and you want to pick apart the final section? How dare you?
Yeah, sorry. That's the only thing so far that hasn't felt believable. These kids don't know shit.
Every elder who's ever stared at a stormy lake in November has thought, does that work? Are we happy now?
Fortunately, I'm happier now.
Just for a second about that big ship and those 29 souls. And what's wild, since that night, November 10th, 1975, no large commercial freighter is ever lost on the Great Lakes. The Fitzgerald was the last. In that sense, her loss wasn't just a tragedy, it was a turning point. A line drawn in steel and sorrow, marking an end of an era and a start of another.
Nice.
There we go.
Well, I really did. I waited till the second to last sentence.
I know, yeah.
Hey, wait a minute.
I know. I almost got through it all. No, it's fine. You're right.
It was good. It was good. It was really good.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah.
I had heard, although I double checking based after what you said, your statement seems to be more correct than what I had heard. But I had heard that the maritime bell was rung 30 times, 29 for the sailors and once for Gordon Lightfoot after he died. And maybe that was true in 2023. But for the 50th anniversary, it was the 30th was for all the Great Lakes sailors who've lost their lives.
So I think what it was like. Because I heard when Gordon Lightfoot passed away last year that they rang. I don't know if the 30th one is mentioned along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think annually they do ring the bell for all those are lost. So I think there were the 34 Lightfoot and the lost. Gotcha. And I think the additional still existed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that I'm not 100% sure on. Like I said, between combing through, what I could find on Wikipedia, what I've read through on, or what I've gathered from some of the documentaries on YouTube, because there's a bunch of documentaries on YouTube. They're like anywhere from like half an hour to an hour, 15 minutes that you kind of watch through, and then you pull up articles and stuff like that. It's
Right.
all out there.
Yeah. Yeah. But it
So,
seems like anything that was like a legitimate newspaper from Detroit was saying the 30th was for the
yeah.
lost souls, the other lost souls.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
cool. I didn't know any of that really. So that's fascinating.
I'm trying to do my best to take a little bit of more effort in the stuff that I do, especially when we talk about, I mean, like we're just bantering and BSing and stuff. I mean, there's no real research that needs to be done, but
Yeah.
if we decide to, like if we're like if we decide in the future we're going to do something, I want to do a little bit more research on it, just to, legitimize it a little bit. For those out there who are watching the video, we're gonna wrap up here in a second, but if you're watching this video, if you want to wait to the very end, you're going to see a list of all 29 crewmen who passed away. If you're listening to this on audio, you won't get that. But if you wanted to, it'll be on the back end of the video on our Freakin Studios YouTube channel. So, Joe, what are you freaking thinking about?
Ooh, what am I freaking thinking about? I don't remember if I've talked about it here yet. Um, but I just finished what is available of the Dungeon Crawler Carl book series. Um, it's a very fun story. It's the genre, I guess, is called a lit RPG, which is like you're reading it knowing that the character knows that they're in a role playing game.
Okay.
And so it's like two layers of fantasy, I guess, in a way, in a weird way. I'm not describing it well. I've never heard of this genre before. This is the first book series I've ever read in it. But it's fascinating. The premise of the story is that the apocalypse has happened. A man in the middle of the night out chasing his cat who has jumped out the window. Um, has grabbed his cat, he's holding her, and the all of a sudden all of the buildings all around him flatten into nothing, and everyone is presumably dead. And an announcement goes out that there is a certain amount of time for him to enter a portal to join the dungeon crawl. And if you join the dungeon crawl, there is a chance that you can win ownership of Earth back from the conglomerate that is running the crawl. And it's like 2 a.m. in December in Portland. So he's like, I'm just going to go in the tunnel because it's probably warm in there and all the buildings are gone. And it shenanigans ensue. It's very much in a lot of ways a horror story, but there's a lot of humor to it, a lot of stuff. And I'd say the first book feels very unserious. It's very like at any minute now, just another random character might pop up, and it's gonna be the enjoyment of all these random characters doing random character things. And then by book three, you realize like it's this fantastic critique of the nature of unending greed and the way that societies build themselves around the profits of exploitation and particularly by sort of looting other less well off places. And by the end of book seven, there's like 8 full on rebellions happening throughout the galaxy because of this one character who is just kind of he's got hard opinions and he keeps somehow surviving. So it's a fun story. I really have enjoyed it. Book 8 comes out in June, which just kills me. I broke my main rule of not starting series that aren't finished yet. But the author is a younger guy. He's like in his 30s or 40s, and he writes like 2 of these books a year. So hopefully there's some time left, but I highly recommend it. It's fun. My description is probably pretty dry, but it's a guy and his now sentient cat doing a dungeon crawl together. And it's a very fun story. And even if you don't delve into the really political parts of it, because all stories are political to some level, it is just a fun story. And I highly recommend it. Part of what got me reading it is that it has been picked up by Fuzzy Door, which is Seth MacFarlane's entertainment company. So they're working on a TV show. So I'm
Awesome.
excited about that. So that's what made me go, all right, I'll check it out because Seth MacFarlane's involved. So anyway, what about you? What are you freaking thinking about?
Um, yeah, so I'm gonna do this without names. So, a couple weeks ago, somebody who I saw as a friend, um, thought we had a good relationship, a good friendship, uh, decided that he needs a break from doing his content stuff.
Yeah.
And he decided that he needed that because there was too much negativity in his life. And I, I wish I knew the exact issues, but he reached out to a mutual friend of ours and told him that he needed to step away from negative people and all this and blah blah blah. To come to find out, I guess I was one of those negative people.
Oh, all right.
And yeah, and I'm not upset by it. I'm not pissed by it. It's a little bit annoying that
Yeah, just come to me. I've never been the kind of guy who says don't talk to me about it.
yeah, it's one of those things where it involves the wrestling business in a sense where I've talked about my gimmick of who I am here on this show over on What I Am in JFW, and people know that it's an amplified characterization of my personality. Like
Right.
what I say, what I do there isn't what I really mean, what I feel. But that's the content. That's the character. That's what people enjoy. That's what people find funny. That's what people find entertaining.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
kind
what
of the
people
appeal.
and that's what people want when they want to involve me in their content. So,
Right.
and that is across social media and podcasts and all that stuff.
Right.
Because that's the general understanding of what we're doing here is that's the story being told.
Right.
So when somebody who, in my hearts of hearts, hope and pray, they find the help that they know they need. When they want to take something that I said and want to honestly believe that I mean it when I don't,
Right.
and decide that I'm some kind of devil. Okay, that's unfortunate, but I'd rather you have come to me and tell me I'm this evil, wicked person and go to somebody else and tell them that I'm an evil, wicked person.
Yeah.
So, um,
Do they use those words, evil, wicked?
it it was a, I could be paraphrasing slightly, but that's what it is. I guess
It was just
the
negative.
well, no, see, the best way to sum it up is like basically I'm spreading hate in the world.
Oh, okay.
I guess to my understanding, that's what I was doing.
Gotcha. What I
And
don't.
the best way for
I'm
them
curious what hate in the world you're spreading. That's all.
I tell you what, I'll explain it to you after the show's over
Yeah, that
because
sounds
because I don't want to put it because I'm not going to put it out on here because
yeah.
one they don't need the publicity of whatever would come out of it.
Right.
Two, if they listen to the show, they know who I'm talking about, and if they
Right.
want to step up and be a grown up and actually talk to me instead of talking to other people about me, they're more than welcome to do it. But I'm not doing this as to point out the issues that's going on with me. It's for the rest of the world out there. Like if you truly have an issue with somebody, talk with them about it
Right.
before you give up friendships and before you decide you determine that what is happening is really happening. Reach out and talk to people. It's like you don't have to destroy friendships and family relationships and all this stuff because you have a belief of what you think is happening.
Right.
Because just like a text message, a Facebook message, a comment on it, like you don't know the expression that's coming out of that.
Right.
You interpret what you believe it is based on how you want to read it. Boyfriends and girlfriends do that all the time. I'm not. Just as an example, Joe, have you ever gotten a text from your wife where she just said, "That's fine, that's okay," and she really meant "that's fine, that's okay," and you're like, "Oh, geez, what I do to piss her off?"
Yeah, all the time.
Right? It just happens. It happens in every relationship. It happens in friendships. There'll be time when I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" They're like, "Fine," and in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, they're not fine."
Right. Yeah.
Because the last time I asked it, they said it's great, but now they're saying they're just fine. Like, what's fine? Like, what's wrong? So just let's try to avoid that in our lives now. Like we're all grown-ups, we're all adults here. Like if you have a problem with me and you think I'm saying something that I'm honest about, reach out to me. And I'm gonna tell everyone right now, if I'm talking to you in the wrestling business about wrestling shit, it's not real. First
Right.
off, First off, I have two podcasts, a full-time job. I'm trying to create a new web series. I don't got time to care about what I say in the wrestling business. I just don't. Like I go out there, I spew my content as my character, and then I move on about my day.
Gotcha.
Like I don't have the urge to fill my life with more than I have right now. Because I got JFW, this freaking show. I'm trying to start a belly up. I'm trying to give us joy to do the Christian show. I'm trying to get my buddy's wife to start up her podcast. I got all these other stuff that I really want to focus on. I can't focus on me saying a negative thing in a comment because that's what the gimmick is. That's what you strive for. That's the shit you want me to say so you can respond to it. But because you have a bad day and decide that, oh, well, this isn't, the normal, play. This is real. Screw you, dude. But just for everyone out there, like just talk to people. There's nothing wrong with just saying, hey, can you explain what you meant here? Because
Yeah.
this
Hey,
kind
do
of
I
seems
understand
personal.
this correctly? Yeah.
Yeah, like this seems personal. And then I could have just said, it's not.
Right.
It's like it's of course it's not. So,
Right.
but
Yeah.
anyways, yeah. So that's just what I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks, and it was almost brought up in my conversation with Justin and Will, but it wasn't talking about it and out in the open like that. It's not. It doesn't need to be done. Like I said, like if this person ever wants to talk to me in person or talk to me over the phone or whatever, feel free to shoot me a text. Just we'll be grown-ups about it. And if they don't, that's fine. My life is going to continue to move forward. So. Yeah. Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Every week, our listeners catch Cartoon Joe here on this freaking show. But if an hour of Cartoon Joe just isn't enough for our listeners, where can they go?
If you need more Cartoon Joe, you can find me over at the Geekcast Live podcast at violentpress.com. You can also find us on Facebook, iTunes, Spotify, and Blue Sky by searching Geekcast Live.
Perfect. Guys, again, if you're watching the video podcast, make sure you stay to the end so you can see all the names of all the people lost on the Edmund Fitzgerald. But whether it be audio or video, make sure you're liking, subscribing wherever you're picking this episode up as. And if it allows you to give a rating or a thumbs up, please do so because that helps us out as well. If you're over on Discord, if you utilize it, make sure you go to Freaknet Studios and you could join us over there on Discord. That's where you'll find all the members of Freaknet Studios there. And of course, on social media, just search This Freaking Show or Freaknet Studios. Please subscribe over to our YouTube channel and make sure you check out the videos that we're putting up. So, guys, that's all I got. As always, I am Travesty.
And I'm Cartoon Joe.
And thank you for listening to another episode of This Freaking Show. I'm out.